Delhi, scorching heat a week ago, and it's raining men today. There's just an adage which I wanted to call today's beautiful, beautiful weather out there. Who do we have with us today? Someone who's grown up rank and file, resilient, has the grit, has the grunt, has the grind behind him. 2 decades of unparalleled experience in the hotel industry, who grew up through the rank and file. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome this energetic, charming, but above all, a brother to everyone, Jatin Khanna.
Thank you, Kunal.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I probably could not have explained or given a better introduction about myself.
No,
what
seriously.
You did.
when you kind of look at yourself, right? It's literally at every level. I think you've seen it all.
Yes, I would probably.
If I had to perhaps cast you in concrete as a hotel, you are in every brick and mortar of the hotel. You know it all.
Well, I don't know it all, but I can say probably I've learned it through. I started my hotel journey literally at the lowest of food chain as an apprentice trainee.
Yes.
And started up from there. So yes, you can say probably I've seen all the levels in operation.
You're so right. And in fact, to the younger audience, there's life lessons for you. And for our older audience, what you're going to understand is the hospitality industry through Jatin's lens, and how does India travel. I'm always intrigued. At the end of the day, the questions about, as a consumer, my own curiosity, and then you have leaders where I ask these kind of questions and hopefully answer them for the audiences. Jatin, where did it all begin for you?
Look, I'll be lying if I tell you that I always wanted to be a hotelier.
Okay.
I think if you pick up 100 hoteliers today, 90 or 95 will tell you it was all by chance or something or the other happened. I was kind of okay in my studies. I was a big student of political science, but I was growing up in 90s, came out of school in 93, and my father didn't know what I will do. And you know how it is. Sometimes parents decide what you should be doing. And I ended up as an apprentice trainee in hotels because I started doing political science honors, and I wanted to be a political science teacher one day. And my father said, as and when you reach that dream, it's okay. Let's start doing something right now. And I ended up being an apprentice trainee. And to be very honest, first 4 or 5 years are pretty much blank in my mind when I think about my hotel journey. It was not until 2000 when I really got serious about this business. Till then, it was more like I was going through the grind. I finished my apprentice training. I started my first job at Imperial Hotel. Then I said, once I finish my graduation, I'm going to do my MA in political science, which I did enroll, by the way, but could never finish it. And that's how one thing led to other. And
polity was something, does it still fascinate you, or where did this fascination towards polity?
It does, because, I always loved, when I kind of passed out of 10th and went into 11th and I got into humanities. That was one thing which really, really, got me hooked on, especially the whole, that's the administrative system of India and how it works and how it functions, parliament, all that stuff. So it really, really kind of fascinated me, and I thought I'll probably do very good. I actually topped in my school, if I'm not wrong, or I was second in political science. I could easily go to St. Stephen, or I could easily go to any other college. I actually got through to St. Stephen at that time with political science. But again, luck had, life had different plans. Because I wanted to do my apprentice training, I did not go to a good college, but then I went to an evening college to do both things together. And those 1.5, 2 years were really, really kind of going through the grind. I used to do night shift, do my morning training, all that stuff used to happen.
So,
yes.
So was I right when I said grit and grind for the last two odd decades?
First few years, not so gritty, but going through the grind
for sure.
is what I would say.
Yeah.
But then, yes, later once I started enjoying, and full thanks to my wife Raji. She's also a hotelier, was a hotelier earlier, and she pushed me into doing a proper hotel management. And I went to University of West London to do my hotel management, and then my career kind of, I would say, took a different shape. And that's where it started.
So where is this political science? I can understand. There was something you wanted to do, but there is political science and there is hoteliering.
Right.
Usually you do not find people say, I want to do hoteliering, right? Especially in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Where did this fascination towards hoteliering kind of come from?
Maybe I was not good enough for anything else at that time.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
But you asked Steve Jobs the same thing and saying he was not good enough except for design.
So
and
you
product
never
marketing.
know. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I said, first 3, 4, 5 years, I was still trying to find my feet around. I was in front office, then I got transferred into sales. And then at one point, when the BPO fever was really catching up in India, I almost left hotels to join Genpact, but then kind of better senses prevailed and I did not do that. So yeah,
I'm assuming that must be 95, 96?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually 97,
97.
Is when Genpact had actually set their shop in 95 or 96.
Just on the outskirts.
Absolutely.
Pretty much where it is right now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes. So I think that's what, and if you remember, there were quite a few hoteliers who had moved out, at that time from Taj and other places.
So what really happened in the decades of the 90s, I'll tell you, a lot of hoteliers moved two ways. They moved towards the aviation industry, where I come from.
Right.
And the entire aviation industry for the 90s was spawned by hoteliers.
Right.
And the entire BPO industry was spawned, I would say, by again the hotels. Right? There was this huge, I would say, talent deficit which may have happened at the hotel. And I know Jet recruited, I think, the best 20 residence managers or general managers from ITC, from Taj, from Oberoi's. And those blokes today are doing phenomenally well.
I'm sure.
Just about everywhere. And
but I don't think same can be said about BPO with all the hoteliers when they moved over there. I think a lot of them came back as well.
I think after 4 or 5 years or something of, high intense operations and, correct.
True.
So you referred to your wife as well. So was she I'm assuming your partner at that time who became your wife, and then you went into formal hotel management at University of West London?
So she was already my wife.
Oh, she was already your wife.
I got married at a very young age. Love makes you do certain things.
Some strange and crazy things.
Yes. But you know what the good part was? And that's where probably I would say that was one of the things I would have never done in my life if it was not for her, is that while being married, I took a chance, left my career in the middle, really not a career, but a job in the middle, went to London, again went back to become a trainee, and then went up the ladder. And I probably always say that my career probably is like pre-2000 and post, while pre-2000 was only a few years, but it really started taking off, post-2001.
But do you ever sometimes wonder, had you not put in the grind, that so-called J curve would not have happened after the 2000? Even that grind was super, super important for you?
In a way, yes. Sometimes you don't know. I always say hindsight is the best 20/20 vision. But maybe you're right. Maybe that would have happened.
That laid a solid foundation for you.
That really put something for me to say I want to continue in this industry.
So right.
Otherwise, maybe if I would not have, maybe another 2, 3, 4 years, I probably would have done something else. So you never know. But yes, you're absolutely right.
But Jatin, I have either through this podcast, through my own experiences, 32, 33 years now in the industry, I can tell you safely for sure. And when I have spoken with CEOs and I've spoken with leaders, the leaders who have come through the rank and file are the ones who have been consistent leaders.
Right.
Are the ones who are very empathetic, because they understand the pain points at every level because they have come through the rank and file.
Right.
When I look at you, and when I have to admit that when I talk to people around you about you, that's exactly what they say, that you are a very hands-on, very empathetic leader, because you understand the pain of, let's say, security, and right up till your ex-com people, or perhaps people who are working with you.
Well, yes, it does make a difference. I'm not going to say, but I don't think it really makes you any better a leader than somebody who's really like a management trainee or come up. I think we've all gone through our own bits, and we all have our own journey. So I would probably not discount what the others do as in terms of their leadership, but yes, my leadership has really got shaped up by quite a few people, and also going through the rank and the complete ladder to understand what every step goes through.
And when you were going through your career, who have been your early influences and your mentors, people along the way who you thought, I like what he or she has done with her life. I like what they have done. And these are the people who influenced you. Who are these?
So look, I'll probably take 2, 3, 4 names if that's okay with you, because if I kind of zero down on one person, it'll be doing injustice.
No, for sure.
So my real career, as I said, started after 2000 when I went to London. Then I came back and I joined Taj Hotels as front office manager. Those 3.5 years in London, I went through again, from a trainee to becoming an AFOM. The first person who really introduced me to the business management side of this business, or the business acumen side, was a gentleman called Gaurav Pokhriya, who's Chief Human Resource Officer currently at IHCL, and I'm still in touch with him. He's like a mentor or a go-to person. I can call him anytime. What he did beautifully for me, and I could really see how to break down complex problems into small compartments and put them into small processes. I say that I'm a person who's very process-oriented, and I kind of learned that from him. My 2 years under him and my exposure to the whole business excellence model of Taj really changed that. So he's one influence. From there, I moved to Marriott. And I think my first brush with balanced scorecard KPIs was under Philip Bryson, who was general manager at that time for Renaissance Mumbai.
This is early 2000?
Yes, this is 2006. 2006.
Yeah.
The word accountability and how to drive performance through your KPIs or balanced scorecard really came through him, and I really loved working with him. I had 2 chances of working with him. One was in Mumbai, and the second was in Beijing, where he was my vice president. And third person within the professional journey, in my opinion, is somebody who I look at as a complete leader, is Rajiv Menon. Raj, as we fondly call him, gave me my first GM break. And why, I'll tell you, while I've spoken about Gaurav and Philip, what they gave me, Raj gave me a total leadership in terms of people management skills, in terms of owner management and stakeholder management.
And that's when you were at Renaissance, he was at the Marriott?
No, this was when I came back to India as general manager.
After the Beijing stint?
Yes. Yeah. After my Beijing stint, I came back as general manager for JW Pune. And I'll tell you, I was super nervous, being first time in a leadership role. And every day you'll have your own cobwebs in your head and doubts and butterflies. But he was one guy who I could call up, and he kind of, held my hand and made sure that I kind of walked through those eggshells properly and become a better leader in myself. And I look up to him in a lot of things.
And how did you manage the stakeholder management? So here you had Marriott, and Raj, of course, he's a great leader. And then you had the owners.
Right.
And how did that balance happen?
So, see, one thing was very good, and I was lucky in that fashion, is that Panchil is a very, very progressive owner. And that really helped me. There were always slight disagreements. I'm not going to, deny that, but they were always for the betterment of the business.
For sure.
But the good part was that both parties, which is Marriott and the ownership Panchil, were always, full of compliments for each other, and they knew how progressive they are. That made my life a little easy, and which was the reason why I almost stayed there for 5 years. I was the longest serving general manager over there. I changed that hotel from Marriott to a JW. I think I won a whole lot of awards over there, which in itself is the testimony to that hotel and to the ownership and to the Marriott. The amount of focus was there. So I think that really shaped me. But yes, my third most influential person for me, or somebody who I look up to, is Raj, who really helped me. By the way, Raj gave me my first break to be a vice president. at that time, we had never thought that from a general manager, you'll become a vice, because the company was still exploding. And it was always saying, how do I go to a bigger hotel or a bigger city? I think that's how the learning curve or the career graphs were. And I think Raj took that.
And with Raj also the same thing. If I'm not mistaken, from Bombay, he went to Australia.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And then he came back as area vice president.
Correct.
So I think from that point of view, I think he took a big punt on me and a couple of our other peers, which I can probably safely say has worked.
Yeah, but tell me something. Would you call them mentors or would you call them sponsors?
It's a mix of both, I would say, because there were a lot of chats which I would have with Raj, which were not as my boss, but more as a mentor, go-to person. Sometimes they were a little borderline between professional and personal as well. So I would probably classify all three of them under my mentors and people who I look up to. So I think that was very, very important. Two more names which I don't want to miss out. Those are more about my personal life. One is my mother. For every child, their parents are most important. But my mother was not very highly educated lady. But what I really learned from her is the resilient part, which you said, and being respectful. I think that was super important. That empathy, I think a lot comes from her. And today, my biggest role model, I would say, is my son, Tushar. I always say, if I was half as good as he is on his age, I probably would have been, at a different level. Probably. I'm still doing very well, in my opinion. I'm still doing decent. But probably things could have changed for me. I think he's super smart and I learn a lot from him.
And your rock solid, better half, what has been her role in terms of balancing both your career, family life? Where does she kind of come in this entire thing?
So that's a very interesting question, because my take is a little different. I have no issue with the question, but that word balancing, because in my opinion, if you really look at my career graph, there was no balance in personal life and professional life.
No,
it was out of balance.
Let me rephrase the question.
She actually brought it to in sync.
Yeah. So let me rephrase the question. The question, Jatin, would be here. One part of the couple is outside and one part of the couple is taking care.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And she played that support role so that you could be the lead role.
So she was the one who really made sure that there's a harmony between professional and personal life. There were a few postings where I was on single posting. She took care of Tushar, she took care of home, she took care of everything. And I tell you, not once has she ever asked me a question when I was moving jobs or moving locations, because I think she went full 100%. Because somewhere I think Raji realized that my rush comes from what I'm able to do in my professional space. And she said, let him grow in that space. So I think that was very beautiful.
Obviously, you're a few years younger than me, Jatin. But whatever you're talking about, there's so much similarity in my professional and personal life as well.
Right.
It was my mother's resilience.
Right.
God bless her soul.
Right.
It was Harsimran, my wife.
Right.
I was the guy who was super ambitious.
Right.
I also rose through the rank and file.
Right.
I never refused a posting.
Right.
Never in my life. My job came first, and she anchored it.
Absolutely.
And that gave me an opportunity pretty much to be ahead of the curve at every aspect. And I see that same thing with you as well.
Absolutely. And the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest compliment which I can give to Raji and Tushar both, that they never made me feel like I'm doing anything less for the family. While I was more engrossed in my work, but they always kind of held that together. Is what I would say.
Now you speak about Tushar. What is he doing now?
He works for Accenture as a management consultant. So he did his economics honors. It's a very funny thing. He was passing out of 12th, and like my father, I asked him, do you want to join hotels? And he said, no, and I want to do something different. So he went on to do his economics honors, and then he went to University of Leeds to do his international relations, and then double masters from Business School of Copenhagen. Came back, got picked up by Accenture, and he specializes in public services now as a management consultant.
Public services?
Yes. He loves postal public services. So he works with different government postal services across the world as a consultant, and do their projects and how to bring efficiency, new technology, all that stuff into their working styles.
And what's the conversation like when a hotelier now kind of meets a public policy person at home with Raji in the background?
Well, honestly, 90% of the things I can't understand. And if I could show you a chat between me and him just 2 days back, and we were trying to do some maths, and he says, your maths is always wrong. So you can well imagine that how much I learned from him. But yeah, some of those interesting conversations. What I really love is that he keeps on improving his learning curve. He keeps on reading and going through different articles, and he probably is more in tune with what's really happening today than I probably am, I would say.
If I have to ask you a little philosophical question, right? Because the audience cuts across. Do strong parents raise strong mindset children?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes, in my opinion. And one of the biggest example is my son, what I see.
And do you think you would have reached here, wherever you are,
right,
and wherever you will be, had it not been for Raji and her constant, I would say, companionship with you?
Absolutely no. It's a very, she was my senior. She was a proper hotel management graduate. She had everything going for herself. And for her to push me into doing something more and get out of comfort zone and giving me a comfort or a blanket wrapped around me to say, go back and become a trainee, go back and do a hotel management and I'll take care of house. Don't worry whether what age you are at, you can still do it, means a lot.
Jatin, it just comes back from the same thing over and over again. And I'll tell you, it stems from our mothers, it stems from our experiences, it stems from hundreds of people I've kind of spoken to, and it goes back to the same thing. Without our women, we are nothing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Either in the mother's form, either in the sister's form, the wife form, the daughter's form, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And I like to reiterate this again. This aspect is saying, how do you define men?
Yeah.
And this very wise man said, from women.
Right.
So our definition and our astitwa,
exactly.
as they say it,
yes, absolutely,
right, comes from
yes, they keep you grounded.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. At the beginning, we also said we are going to talk about India, the hospitality sector, the travel, the trade, what's really happening, and I want it from your angle. You're well traveled. You have seen China as a market.
Yes,
right.
I have.
Especially when China was in its ascending form.
Absolutely.
That was the real, I would say, China.
Yes.
The growth really happened at that time. And when you look at kind of India, if I had to ask and draw a parallel between what you saw in China at that point in time and where are we at India today, although it's a decade and a half difference, right?
Right.
Can you give us some sort of a...
So one of the big things which really comes at forefront is workforce, which we all talk about. I don't see a major change. While the habits have changed, aspirations have changed. But during my time in China, we were also facing a huge crunch of manpower. Less people going to hotel management, or this was not your first choice career, this was an alternate stopgap. And I think it's same happening in India today. From a growth trajectory or the business point of view, I think decades and decades would belong to India because of the whole demographic and the economies of scale tilting in our favor. When you look at it, how things are changing, how middle class is changing, upper middle class is changing. And I think from that perspective, we're pretty much in the right zone. The only problem, probably not the problem, but the challenging question comes is the manpower and how do you keep on sustaining that? I think last few years, especially post-COVID, what has shown us that the supply and demand mismatch is going away. Today, the supply is actually outpacing the demand, barring last couple of months, which was for obvious reasons. But otherwise, I think we're pretty much in a very, very good spot, if you really ask me.
But as a consumer of Indian economy, right? As let's say as an outsider, if I go back to the China, let's say, when you were in China, was it driven by domestic demand at that point in time, or was it still a mix of both domestic and international demand?
So I'll give you two examples in that. Beijing, where I was, a lot of it was corporate. International demand was also coming in. But let's assume when you go to leisure destination, Xi'an or other places, a lot of it was driven by domestic.
And that's pretty close to Sana.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was driven a lot by domestic demand, a lot of it. So when you look at today, our domestic consumption is very high. By the way, your inbound is still not back, but still your occupancies are at all-time high, which really talks about domestic consumption. There's a proper. I was with Make My Trip team last evening only, and we were discussing how things were changing, and today the booking cycle has now gone back again to 15 days out, 18 days out, which was literally after post-COVID was 0 to 3, 0 to 3. People are taking 5 to 6 holidays, shorter breaks, then doing 2 breaks, which was earlier the phenomena with good 2 weeks of holiday. That's not the case anymore. Everybody knows the way it has changed. Today, we have a lot more get-togethers and family reunions happening in hotels than to go back to conventional style when you were going to your nani's house or mama's house. That does not happen anymore. So I think that's where the change is there in the consumption pattern. And one of the biggest change which is really happening, and we were talking about it yesterday, 25 to 30% of bookings are on women solo travelers or women traveling in groups. That is really changing.
That is also very interesting.
But what that means for hotel industry is to change and look at that demographic or that segment to make sure that your hotels are safe and secure, your rooms are aesthetically done, which are complementing to what a woman traveler would need. Those kind of things are also coming into space, if you ask.
But tell me something. Again, this is that contra view which I have, and you may want to just respond to that. When you look at a small country like France, I understand it's in Europe, right? Or also driven by that 1-2 hour of travel, and in our neighborhood, you don't necessarily have that 1-2 hour of travel. How can, let's say, a country like France have 100 million tourists? You have Thailand, which is largely driven by tourism, have like 40, 50, 60 million.
Right.
And India, still that inbound has not happened. Now, there are 2 ways to look at it. Hey, you know what? There's enough domestic demand, which will drive our economy. That's no problem. But what really happens with an international inbound kind of coming in, even the credibility of India, and also the fact that it's dollar denominated, that's also different. How come we haven't scaled or come close to, let's say, a Thailand level, or let's say a Spain level, or let's say a Mexico level? In your opinion, where do you think the issue could be?
So look, I may end up giving you a very stale answer, which you probably would have heard a lot of times. I think what happens is that, first of all, you're absolutely right, that inbound number has to multiply, because that's not what we're really worth. But what also happens is that India again has been tagged in a very historical, cultural destinations. And when you look about party or anything, you start looking towards Thailand and all that stuff. So I think those things, infrastructure development, ease of visas, which is already happening now. Don't forget, connectivity is improving a lot. Mind you, the other thing is, if you look at it, the 2 most populous nations, which is India and China, don't have direct flights.
True.
So that also makes a difference. Chinese travel a lot, Indians travel a lot. So that also does make a difference, at times. So I think some of those things, as and when those things keep on easing off, you will see. But to your point, there's enough of domestic demand also, which is really, kind of fueling the whole industry.
But the domestic demand is also fueling a couple of things, right? Consumers with a certain threshold of income, maybe who have seen India or Bharat, they're moving out of the country because the aspiration is to, I would say, Far East Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, right? That's the aspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
The people who have been to the Thailand are now going to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, all the 4 stans.
Exactly.
People who have been there are now going to Europe.
Absolutely.
And eventually to the US, right? But then there is literally, with every $1 trillion we are adding into the economy, the people who haven't even seen Bharat are seeing Bharat first.
Absolutely.
And then they're moving up the aspirational ladder.
Absolutely.
Is my understanding correct?
You are absolutely right. But the good part about Indian industry from a domestic consumption is that when you stack it up, you can't take, every time an international holiday, and which is why that strata of people who've been to Thailand or Baku or London are still taking, domestic holidays in your upper upscale or luxury hotels, which are very, very experience-led. But when you look at the whole domestic demand consumption, it really starts from your Samaj Bhavan, that religious places, going up till the luxury level. So you have space for everybody, which is what it is also fueling. When you look at all the smaller destinations to religious places,
where is India traveling? And I'll tell you again from the lens of an aviation industry, right? The Goa still is that confluence of India and Bharat coming.
Yes.
Is there any other destination like Goa which is a confluence? Like when I look at Shimla, Mussoorie, that's more North India,
Yes.
let's say base Delhi,
Right.
moving up the mountains,
Right.
right? But I don't see a Bangalorean going to a Mussoorie. I don't see a Chennai guy going to a Mussoorie, but they all come to Goa. Is
Yes.
there any other destination in India which is like Goa where you find India and Bharat confluence together?
Well, another good destination is Pondicherry. High demand, high rates, and you will see the only issue is air connectivity. Otherwise you land at Chennai and drive down. But beautiful, beautiful roads. That's one destination which straight away comes to mind. What has broken the barrier is the religious tourism. When you look at Ayodhya,
Correct.
Vrindavan, Mathura or Varanasi, or Puri or Somnath, that has broken the barrier of where you belong. It does not matter.
And do you think, Jatin, that let's say when you said that Indians travel 5 times, do you think 2 would be leisure and 3 would be religious tourism?
It'll be difficult to say because depending on what age bracket you are, as you keep on growing, you become more spiritual, saying, don't take anything away from me now, God. So you end up doing that. But it's difficult. I do not have that data point. But religious tourism is actually exploding in India, if you really ask me.
Especially even with better road infrastructure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whether you look at Haridwar or whether you look at Char Dham or whether you look at Ayodhya, it is just exploding, and there is enough room for everybody to really consume.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll just kind of put it kind of together. There was a friend of mine from Bombay. I'm from Bombay. And he said that he wants to do the Char Dham Yatra, and apparently I didn't know about it, that it's connected through helicopters now.
Yes.
You can take those, I didn't know about it.
From Dehradun.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know about it. And 4 days at a particular price point,
Absolutely.
you can pretty much airlift yourself and drop into these 4 dhams and get it done in 4 days.
I'll give you another example. Vaishno Devi, you can't find helicopter ride. It is always booked for good 1 month in advance. And people who are really into hustle and bustle, they just want to do a quick in and out. That's the best way to do. But again, you got to spend money, you got to book in advance. So that's also really happening. So to answer that question, probably 1 or 2 religious visits are also there amongst your 2 or 3 of Goa and Pondicherry. But by the way, there is a very interesting stat. Goa is almost flattening out when it comes to occupancy. Or probably it has even come down if you look at May numbers or April numbers, if I'm not wrong. Again, that could be also because of the election. There are a lot more restrictions over there.
For sure.
But again, over year and year, even first quarter of Jan to March, we saw that it was flattening out.
And is it because, again, Thailand and Vietnam and these destinations
possibly,
are actually
yes, but
attracting?
also other destinations, also supply and demand. So many hotels opening in Goa. Also, sometimes what happens is the air connectivity, how expensive it is when you look at peak periods or weekends or something like that.
But you're absolutely right. I can tell you for a fact that in April or something of that sort, it was cheaper to travel to Thailand.
Absolutely.
With let's say a 10%, 15% premium.
Absolutely.
Than to travel to kind of Goa.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But the opposite is also true. The air travel was expensive, but it pushed on the hotel rates because the occupancy was lower.
Well, it's a complete supply and demand. Your algorithms are working in that way.
And yeah, that's quite interesting. When you look again, India tourism, India travel, everything that's happening around us, and when you look at Sarovar, right? More than 200?
Well, we've got 118 hotels, 77 locations, 80 in pipeline. We've opened 10 hotels in the first 6 months this year, and we're going to open another 10 in second half of the year. By the time we finish this year, we're going to be roughly around 126, 127 hotels at 85 locations.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And these locations are, again, either religious locations or en route locations, or perhaps, of course, holiday destinations.
Absolutely.
When an outsider, non-hotelier, Indian consumer, when he wants to look at the Sarovar brand, what is the first 2 or 3 things that he should take away with? What is Sarovar?
You can find me wherever you want in India. I'll ask you a simple question. You know where Orai is? So Orai is a big hub between Jhansi and Orcha. And it's got the biggest Safal factory over there. And it's a big wedding destination. And we're the only branded hotel over there.
I remember, and correct me, you need to correct me if I'm wrong, Jatin. Maybe a decade ago or something, I was in Siliguri and Sarovar was the only branded hotel there for the longest time.
There's a very small village called Dindi, which is 4 hours away from Rajamundry. We've got a beautiful Sarovar on the banks of Godavari River. And the same owner is opening second hotel with us in the same village because we've been able to generate that demand at a good rate. So you can well imagine what Sarovar has done. I always say this, number of hotels do not fascinate me so much. I can say I've got 118 hotels and 18 pipeline. We'll be really celebrating the day we're at 100 locations. And that's what the aim is. In next 6 months, we're going to be in Saharanpur, which is not a religious place, which is not a pure play corporate. We are going to be we're opening another hotel in Pilibhit.
So tell me something.
Yeah.
If I turn this around, when you say you have an open hotel in Saharanpur or Pilibhit, would it now be easier for a consumer like me and say, you know what, let me go and explore these places. You know why? Because there is a branded hotel there.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's intimidating for someone like me if you don't find something.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. Saharanpur, we were just opening on 12th of July. And obviously, we came with a whole pre-opening plan, and this was going on from last 30, 45 days. And I got a call from a known person, a family friend, and he said, my daughter is getting married, and thank God you're opening in Saharanpur. I want to book next year, February, entire hotel for her wedding.
Beautiful.
I said, okay, let me come back to you. He said, no. The boy side is from there. We are going there. I want to get her married over there. Please book the entire hotel for me. That's what really changes. Now, if you reduce Sarovar from there, you probably will have banquet halls over there or lawns over there, but no accommodation.
But I look at it the other way as well, right, Jatin? Sarovar comes there, right? It's the only branded hotel there. Now the ecosystem which now will be built around it.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
That for me is that infrastructure building that you're kind of doing, right?
Absolutely.
A place which was, let's say, not in the top of the mind recall, you're putting it on the map.
Absolutely.
And because of that, better roads, now people will travel.
Absolutely.
And livelihood for everybody else to support Sarovar there.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And that is why I say that I'm more interested in number of destinations because that's how you're touching more lives in local community, local ecosystem, thriving, driving the local economy.
And you know what, incidentally, aviation pretty much follows the same philosophy.
Absolutely.
So if let's say Indigo today must be at God knows in how many destinations, but the fact that they look 3 or 4 years in advance and how they can actually open up the economy.
Absolutely.
If they've lined a tube over there.
Yes. But I even remove aviation and I say that we are at those locations where there are no airports. And that's where, we had this good meeting with Make My Trip yesterday and see what else can we do with trains and buses and all that stuff. I have no shame in saying that we would love to do a tie-up and make a big marketing splash because we are on those destinations where you can't find an airport, but you have to go there because of some work or some other stuff which is happening. So I think that is super beautiful.
I think the north of India is connected between 8 and 9 hours anywhere you kind of go.
Absolutely.
Right now with the better infrastructure, it will be 6, 7, 8 hours. Yeah.
Absolutely. We were the first hotel in Jhansi. Today you've got competition. You've got 3, 4 branded hotels, but we were the first branded hotel in Jhansi. That really talks how we've entered markets, how we've taken our punt on these
Do you also
places.
take into consideration Sarovar, let's say, I'll take the Pilibhit example or Saharanpur example. Sarovar, has a first advantage, 2 years, 3 years, lead time, opens it up.
Absolutely.
And you'll find host of, let's say, other hotel companies now kind of coming in and driving in, suppressing the demand.
Well, the good part is that there is enough space for everybody. It does give some immediate, jerks or pull and push. Let's take an example of Gorakhpur market. We were the first entrant over there with the Sarovar. Second was Radisson over there. And then now you've got a Marriott also over there. But what really happened is that there is more than enough demand. It was just some immediate corrections, but we've not lost on occupancy. Over the years, we've been able to build a strong value proposition for the locals, which is what they associate us with, and they've not moved away.
And when you have, again, as a CEO of this company, the other companies that you have kind of led, but in a market like this, would you drive the top line growth, or you're okay with margins getting, I would say, smaller?
So, by nature, I'm a little aggressive guy. I always focus on top line because, in my opinion, once you take care of that, margins will automatically come. What we've been able to do successfully is that year on year. So last year, we were the highest occupied brand in India as per STR. We were at 73% as an India portfolio. The STR hospitality industry occupancy was at 68%. Now, these are averages. There may be somebody at 74 or 75, which I doubt, but we were one of the highest occupied. So the only way you can really grow is the rate route. If you try and grow occupancy anymore, it's not possible because the 73-74% occupancy mean that 3 to 4 days you're almost sold out. There'll be 1 week or 2 weekends you're not. So when you want to grow rate, then you got to put those efficiencies in place and the revenue management, and that's what really happens. We've been able to grow our rate by almost 18 to 20% year on year. It's a very funny thing. I joined and I was told by Ajay and Louvre, which is our principal partner, let's build a 5-year plan. And we build a 5-year plan, and you come with a very conventional theory that the company should double in 5 years, which would be at a 16.5 CAGR. And we started building that. We put that in place. We were pretty much on target. But this year, literally 2 months back, we revisited because it's, again, we work on calendar year, we're looking at next year budget. And we realized that we're going to be doubling our company in 4 years if I remove 20 and 21 from a 2019 base at a 19.1% CAGR in 4 years, organically and inorganically, which is your conversions and the new openings plus your organic or same store, which are growing in their revenue. I think that's a super story. And that really shows that there is so much of headroom for every player. And for us, we've got that head start in some of those locations where nobody else is there.
So both in terms of scale and in terms of the rate growth is happening.
Yes.
But to that Indian consumer of Sarovar who patronizes Sarovar, right? What can they expect through the rate growth? Is there any more premiumization that you will be offering to the Indian consumer?
So obviously we had to tweak our operational efficiencies or operational SOPs, I would say, from a simple thing to bring in turn down amenities, to change your in-room wet amenities, to change your breakfast buffet spreads, to look at add-ons and how you bring value into higher room categories, all that stuff. We do not have fancy club lounges, but if you are in one of our hotels booking a higher room category, you may have inclusions which are really not part of otherwise, whether it's your beer buckets to unlimited laundry to other stuff, which has really worked for us. So we've really worked on adding some of those small bits to create value addition and a value proposition for the customer to pay you extra. If I would have gone with a simple vanilla approach that just changes supply and demand, I would have probably fallen flat on my face and the occupancy levels would have come down. The experience, right from the time a customer is making a booking to when they're checking out, on a customer feedback to in-house journey, all that stuff has made a difference to us.
And the consumers right now, obviously India is also getting very eco-sensitive, at least at a certain layer, right, of income levels.
Right.
And the people who patronize Sarovar, are they conscious and do they demand, let's say, an eco-sustainable environment?
Well, yes, in a way. Because also, don't forget, we've got a lot of newer generation which comes into our hotels who are very sensitive. And we have made a lot of product changes to that effect. When you talk about sustainability, whether changing from small bottles to bulk amenities. So what we've done is that we run our sustainability on 3 pillars, which is planet, people, and efficiency. So what I'm really saying is that from a planet point of view is reducing wastages and all that stuff. Efficiency is all about HLP, putting in new technology. But the best part is about people, and what I'm really talking about is the stakeholders or our guests. We're probably one of those first movers who've gone into asking our customers through proper feedback system, did you notice sustainable efforts in the hotel? Do you think they are enough? What else can we do? So it's a reverse feedback which is coming. A lot of time you get stuck on overall satisfaction, check-in experience, breakfast quality, and you say we're doing good job. So we've kind of changed that approach a little bit.
When you talk about sustainability, there is a capex cycle which needs to support sustainability, which pushes the price up.
Yes.
How do you manage now to keep the price, let's say, low, and yet push the sustainability part out?
So one, obviously, one of the biggest thing we have is a very robust procurement system with 118 hotels and our sister concern of Radisson. We have a scale to demand. That is one. Also, the capex infusion really comes when you're doing major renovations. But if you have 80 hotels in pipeline, you can start tweaking things to bring about the best before they open. So I think those things go hand in hand. And that is not a problem which is peculiar to Sarovar. That's a problem which is peculiar to every brand who's been in country or has been there for 30 years or more or 20 years or more. As the hotels get old, you have to infuse capital into it. So I think that's a problem which coexists, but we have to find solutions to create better opportunities for customers.
You've been a hotelier living through the decade of, let's say, early 2000, 2010, now 2020. How has the consumer changed if you live through these 24 years?
One of the biggest thing I personally feel the change is that consumer wants an experience, but not so obstructive service or intrusive service. They want to be left on their own. They want to create their own moments. They want hotels to facilitate that. Gone are the days that you will serve from here and clear from there. I think that is kind of changing, if you ask me. Customers don't demand that. And that is where, when you look at it, I can give you an example. In my previous company, when we were bringing bulk amenities for the first time, there was like a big this thing that Indian customers may push back, but we realized no, they were in tune with what's happening in international travel because they're all well traveled in international standards. So I think that is kind of changing, if you really ask me, as a consumer. They do want their value for money, by the way.
So if again you were designing, let's say, a service or a hotel concept now, right, in 2024 to open in 25 or 26, right? And if you had to ask Tushar, right? Because at the end of the day, he's the next generation who will be consuming in India.
Absolutely.
What will Tushar appreciate now, let's say, if he travels?
So again, a seamless experience without calling your room service on your app.
Less obtrusive.
Absolutely. So we're opening a hotel in Sri Peramburu, which is going to open in 25. Design started last year. And that's our first smart hotel where everything inside the room is voice controlled, voice managed, right from your music to ambient temperature to lights to your smart TV. And I think that's what a customer really wants. COVID gave us digital menus, but that has now gone on to the next level to see, I don't want to just see menu, but I want to order it also from there instead of picking up the phone. We're also bringing in that. How do you have chatbots without calling up reception or concierge? And that journey starts when you start making the booking to understand your preferences and all. I think one of the other things, which in my opinion is the biggest headroom available for our industry, if you really ask me, is the experience-led selling. Today, our selling is still a very supply and demand, algorithm-based. But I think in the next 4 or 5 years, you will see some of the big brands will put a lot of investment behind it, or probably some of the brands are doing it today, which are on smaller scale and can afford to do that, where your previous day guest preference is getting super populated for you to make a choice whether you want to upgrade yourself because you did that last time, you want to book a spa on a discounted price, and then you'll start talking about a total hotel revenue management. Today, when you talk about revenue management, it's primarily a very rooms-driven revenue management.
Yeah, but is the industry doing this? Now, I take the point again of Tushar. Let's say Tushar travels 10 times in a year, 4 times for corporate travel. I'm just putting a number.
Sure.
Right? Incidentally, an average corporate travel is about 8 or 10 times a year, right? So I take that as a benchmark. 4 times could be leisure travel and 2 times could mean some forced travel which kind of happens. Is there a way through big data you can gauge and predict, let's say, Tushar's next travel and then customize that experience around him?
I think that's what is somewhere lacking, if you ask me. Some of the OTAs do that beautifully, but also they do too much of bombardments.
True. Very obtrusive bombardments.
Yes. But I think brands have got some way to go in it. And if you ask us, Sarovar, we've got a long way to go in it. I'm not going to shy away from that part, because we've also realized one thing, that every brand has to invest heavily into digital and technology. And I'll give you a very simple example. And we were talking about this during last Hope conference. A tier 1 man or a woman or a boy or a girl, when they do shopping, they spend 1 or 2 minutes because they know what they need and they quickly do tuck. But a tier 2, tier 3 spend 5 to 6 minutes because they do window shopping, which means that now you're creating a digital experience to, entice them to buy you more, because they're getting used to it and they really love it, and they probably will do some impulsive buying as well. So I think that's where the whole experience-led selling can improve for the hotel industry, if you ask me.
If Tushar has to, let's say, travel with a group of his, where's he working, he said?
Accenture. Yeah.
Accenture friends. Would Tushar prefer, let's say, an Airbnb or that generation? There is an equal number of, let's say, Tushar's generation who would prefer, let's say, a hotel. How do we balance, let's say, a Saranpur B&B, let's say, with the Saranpur Sarovar,
Right.
and maybe 4 other hotels who may kind of open there?
So it's a very interesting thing, because, I've realized that, and I've kind of seen how he travels. So I'll give you an example. If he's traveling with his childhood friends, where they're going to be at their complete nonsense, and he's okay to be in an
bring in the
Airbnb.
noise, then it's a B&B.
B&B.
Yeah.
When he's traveling with his professional friends,
Then would be
he's okay with the Sarovar or even like a mid-market. But let's assume he's traveling with his girlfriend. Then it has to be an experience-led hotel. It's a very, very different
nice
thing.
boutique hotel.
Yes.
Yes.
So and that's
So
where,
the same Tushar,
absolutely.
depending on the circumstances,
Absolutely.
will travel differently and stay different.
Absolutely.
That's so right.
Which is why when somebody, asks me, do you think alternate accommodation, which is all the B&Bs, are a threat? I said no, because they are very, very purpose-led
So right.
stays as well these days.
Especially when you put it in this perspective. I never thought about it from this perspective. Jatin.
Yes.
I think this is a very, very important. Here you say is the same consumer,
Yeah,
and depending on the outcomes that he wants,
exactly.
will choose his
Exactly.
lifestyle accordingly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're spoiled for choice. That's how it is.
Yeah, so true. We have a question from the audience,
Sure.
right? And especially from ISH students, right? My senior most batch students knew that I was going to talk to you, and through their deans, they asked this question. So what skills do you think are essential for the next generation of hospitality leaders?
Look, from my lens, one of the things which I would not say lost out, but I really was not ready for it. Because when we joined, everything was about IQ and your acumen. That has changed to EQ. Especially when today you have a challenge on the workforce, hotel management graduate, non-hotel management, people coming from all walks of life. That is super important if you want to be an effective leader. That is my first and foremost. My second, I would not say skill, but there are 2 P's in my life which I always refer to. One is person to go to, which is your mentor or a person you look up to. You should always have that early in your career. Second is your partner. And what I mean by partner is when you're starting your journey, which company do you work for? Because that should resonate with you and your growth. And that's where you'll feel the happiest. I have spent maximum part of my professional adult life with a particular company, and I could grow tremendously, and that is why, because I could resonate with them and what it was.
So what I'm hearing from you is choose your partner company very carefully,
absolutely,
and invest your early years so that you can grow with that partner company before you think.
Absolutely. My other thing would be take your chances. And I think the newer generation is very good at it. I'll give you a simple example. If somebody would have asked me when I was the director of rooms, hey, listen, do you want to become director of HR? I probably would say no. Even today, I would say no, probably. But if you ask newer generation, they'll probably say yes. So I think they're very good at taking chances.
Yeah.
That is super important.
So the latent effect.
Exactly. See, because if you look at my career graph, I've kind of grown in hotel operations in a particular fashion, which
very
was,
linear.
Yeah. So I think that is something you got to take your chances.
So for that, what you're saying is you need to have adjacent skills.
Absolutely.
And don't, for the lack of word, don't shy away from
Absolutely.
taking these chances.
And even if you don't have skills, today companies are ready to invest in you because they know that you are probably the future leader. So I think that is super important, that you believe in those and take your chances. I think those 3-4 things for younger generation, in my opinion, would really, really help them. And don't forget the learning curve. That always is important.
So from what I've also kind of understood from you, Sarovar is literally opening one new hotel every month.
Yes.
For the next few years.
Yes.
I would assume.
Yes.
Which essentially means you require a lot of additional workforce.
Absolutely.
And upskilling of the current workforce.
Absolutely.
So what are the plans for Sarovar in terms of own upskilling and the latency skills, the adjacent skills that you require?
Right. So let me try and put cart before the horse this time.
Okay.
And tell you this, that last year we were facing this challenge of manpower, growth, general managers, and what do we do? So we said that, look, we're going to put a target to say that in next 2 to 3 years, 50% of our workforce on general manager scale will be filled internally. And by the time we get into 5 to 6 years, it will be good 75%. And then we said, now how do we accomplish that? So first of all, we came up with a beautiful 6 to 8 months of general manager development program. That is pure play for HODs who we see have potential.
Got it.
Last year, we enrolled 8 of our HODs in that. 7 of them are already general managers. Currently, 12 of them are going through the same thing. And they will probably be ready in another 3-4 months, which means that they'll be able to fill up
so
the
now
information.
there's 7 plus 12, let's say about 20 odd general managers.
Exactly. But the biggest thing is that all of them are mobile, because for us, the biggest problem is that we are opening in locations where we want people to go. So that was first thing first, which we did. Then we said, how do we address 5 to 6 years down the line, 75%? And then we said, look, we want to run our own management training program. So when you say that, you say, how are you going to be different than anybody else? Every company does that, but nobody does that in mid-market. And we said, if we want to do this successfully, especially in mid-market, we got to put skin in the game. And we said that we will be running this on our own P&L, on our own expense. We've tied up with Indian School of Hospitality. We roll it from 20th of August, first batch of 20 management trainees being run by Indian School of Hospitality. All will be based at Hotel Chandigarh, which is our own hotel, with top dollar stipend given, which is in par with other big brands, and shortest management training program with a very, very clear 2 days marked for their curriculum, and they're not to be treated as a regular workforce. And the idea is that 6 years, if not 6, then 6.5, 7 years max, they should be general managers in our system. If we're able to do that consistently over the next 4-5 years, roll out these batches and put our money and efforts into it, I think we'll reach that.
I think it's so important that you kind of said this. I think you're leading from the front.
Yes.
As you rightly said, look at the STR report and you are the highest from that perspective. Now you're a mid-scale brand, which is completely, I would say, disrupting.
Yes.
I can tell you as somebody who's been running in education institutions for the longest time now,
Right.
this is what even Tushar's generation would love to see in terms of that investment from the company.
Absolutely.
It's never about the money.
Absolutely.
It's about that investment.
Yes.
And to this point, what kind of Sarovar is kind of doing.
Absolutely.
What will also happen, outsiders who are looking at, let's say, who have not looked at Sarovar for whatever reason, or maybe they didn't even want to look at the hotel industry.
True.
Right? And wanted to get into, let's say, real estate, luxury, whatever.
Yeah.
They will also start kind of looking in because of the investment in person and the career trajectory, which is predefined.
Absolutely. And that's why once you're above your management training program, there are 2 pit stops. One is manager development program, which will happen independently by us. And then is the GM development program. So there are 3 pit stops for them to become general manager. And that is where it is more important. But I keep on referring to saying, we're probably the first mid-market company to invest time, effort, money, everything in this. A lot of time management training programs are not looked at in that space. So I think it was super important for us that if we do it with full efforts and energy and heart behind it, instead of treating them like a regular workforce. And the idea why we kept it the shortest, because we genuinely believe that a person coming out of hotel management has his basics in place. and we can get them to be an assistant manager after 1 year instead of having it in 18 months or a 24-month course.
Even as a group, you are as big as, let's say, the top 1, 2, right?
We're the 4th largest today.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But when I talk to you, Jatin, when I talk to Ajay as well, right? I don't see, even at this large level, there is bureaucracy which has kind of set in.
Yeah.
Is it something to do with your leadership?
Well, it's a very simple that we've always kept our org structure very simple and flat. I always refer to KISS formula. Keep it simple and stupid. Don't get into too many of layers and layers. The best part is that we're all on one floor. And if anybody has to talk to each other, we just walk into each other's office and just get it done with. We generally do not believe in delaying the decisions. Whether it's for owners, whether it's for our people, whether it's for our product.
So you'll find a swift resolution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing leading, if you're not able to take a decision in 2 days, then there is a problem.
Yeah.
And if that problem exists at leadership level, somebody like me who's not ready to take a decision, then there is something wrong with me. Yeah. As simple as that. We're very clear on that.
And from what I'm also kind of getting is you're investing in that culture, and culture will take care of growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're investing in people, in culture, very, very clear. To give you a simple example, we've increased our corporate workforce. We used to have 3 people in revenue management, but today with more than 118 hotels and so many in pipeline, we've invested and taken it to 8 people. Our marketing used to be 1 person. It is today 3 people. HR used to be 2 people. Now it is 4 people. Technical services, doubled up. So I think we have to invest, and that's where the decision making becomes a lot more better because people are ready on the ground. You've got to make sure that your workforce is on the ground and owner is not running around, because at the end of the day, owner is the one who's investing so much money in hotels. And if he has to run around to find people who are only on flights or not accessible, then you have a problem.
When I look at ISH, or when I look at institutions like ISH, I always say there are 3 or 4 responsibilities and obligations for an institution worldwide.
Right.
One is, of course, the teaching. Right. Second aspect is, if you're a professional institution, how can you help the industry?
Right.
And that's what ISH is kind of doing right now. The third most important thing, and that's what's leading to my question, the next question to you is also how can the institution, I would say, impact the local community in which it operates. Right. So for ISH, I would say, because we are in Gurgaon, we do a lot of work with schools. We do a lot of work with, let's say, home bakers, home culinary enthusiasts, right? Not necessarily profitable. It's not profit-based. But the fact that this is a way of giving back into the community.
Right.
Sarovar, 113, 77 locations, going to, let's say, 200 hotels, 90 locations, 100 locations. How does this community outreach? How are you investing in that community outreach?
So let me try and start from our vision, which is based on 4 pillars. Very clear: improving lives, sustainable development, concern and care, and partnerships. COVID time was horrible, and I'm just giving you an example. While we do a lot of stuff in that social responsibility, but probably we were the only company which set up one of our hotels as a proper COVID care center at Sector 29 in Gurgaon at our Golden Tulip. 60 bed for elderly with proper nursing staff, which was in collaboration with MOI and IIM Gurgaon, oxygen concentrators and everything. No other body did that. And we went selflessly into that because we thought that it is our responsibility for whatever little we can do. That's one of the examples. But we definitely believe that there is a lot we do in our local communities. One of our biggest CSR activities with Rose Petal Foundation, where we've been contributing for years and years now, which is improving lives of children coming from not so well off and giving them education, providing them education. Today, all our hotels work with local NGOs in giving employment. The good part is that 45 to 50% of our workforce is within local. In our hotels, which really talks a volume as to how you are affecting the local or the social fabric of where you are. And that's where a lot of time this comes before the profitability when people are able to resonate with you as a brand when you are there. So I think that is super important. So we are very, very clear. And thanks to people like Ajay and Mr. Madhok, how the company has been set up. It's a very, very grounded company. Ingrained simple values to say, we got to be within the local communities. I think that talks a lot.
And it manifests from the kind of personality that they were and are.
Absolutely. We've been in this business now for 3 decades, 30 years. We celebrated 1st June, 30 years of our company, foundation. And that really talks of volume. 30 years would probably make us even the 3rd or 4th oldest company after maybe Taj, Oberoi and ITC in India for that matter.
Yeah, it's been there. I remember as much as about 35 years ago. Yeah. I do kind of remember.
Yeah.
Jatin, 2.5 decades now in this industry. If I have to ask you
always
to
remind me of my age.
No, and that's a good experience, I say. The average age of human beings, and God bless you, with another 45 to 50 years, right? No one wants to be immortal here. But when you now look ahead, right, there's so much of impact that you're kind of creating here. What next for you, as in your mind, when you process as a human being, right? You are at a certain stage in your life when you look at 10 years ahead, not professionally. Professionally, of course, you have your own ambition, but even personally, what is it that you want to be doing?
So, I've kind of put it in 2 buckets. I think I still have a lot of energy in me and a lot of fuel left in the tank that I want to be pretty much in day-to-day grind for next 4, 5, 6 years. And then at some point, take a little backseat, give it back to the society. And when I say give it back to not in any big charity way, I don't want to sound very philosophical, but my old passion of being a teacher, I want to be associated with education in some form by imparting whatever I've learned over the years, whether in hotel business or in any other leadership style, something which I definitely want to do. I don't know when the sunset will be for me. I hope not soon. I still have good 12 to 14 years of runway in front of me, when you look at the actual retirement age. But yeah, that's how I would put it. I just want to be very active for next 4, 5 years and then look at something else. I haven't really thought about it, to be very honest.
That's okay. That's absolutely right. But allow me to give you some unsolicited advice. And when you kind of circle back, you started off with political science.
Right.
Of course, you went into hoteliering. And when you want to kind of give back, and to the point when India, for the next 25 years, and I truly believe that it belongs to India.
Absolutely.
Education and health are the 2 most important pillars.
Absolutely.
Right? And in education, I am the biggest, I would say, proponent of hospitality education.
Right.
Because there's so much of myth around it.
Yes.
And I keep on telling parents, and I would love to hear your views, and my view is everything is hospitality.
Yes.
If everything is hospitality, then hospitality education is a foundational pillar of education.
Yes, you're absolutely right, because it touches every part of your life. Let's give you a very simple example, and I go back to Tushar, that if he's sitting in a business meeting, lot is driven by what you learn in hospitality of interpersonal skills, interaction, guest, customer, all that stuff.
Human to human conflict,
absolutely,
hospitality.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I think, you're absolutely right. And which is why at some point I do want to give it back in that form and also live my dream. To be very honest, I'm also selfish in my own way that I want to live my dream, that I want to do that, which has been one, long lost passion.
So I'm going to take 2 hours of your time every month, and here's my proposal to you. We run a incubation center for innovation and entrepreneurship, and if you can spare 1 hour every month or 2 hours every month, most welcome any day of the week, and coach and mentor all our students who are into startups.
Absolutely. If I can add value, why not? And not because we're sitting here and talking. I'm happy to do it. Happy to block my calendar and do that because I think it's going to be super exciting. Not from any other point of view, but also how much you learn from the newer generation. While I may not be the best guy to guide them in startups because the risk-taking ability is much lesser in me as compared to today's generation, but you learn so much, and it's vice versa.
But where the whole aspect kind of comes from is not necessarily only from a startup startup founder or something, the fact that there is experience and fact that behind that binary number,
Right.
there is 2.5 decades,
Right.
they want those conversations to kind of come.
Absolutely, and that is what will be most exciting.
What not to do?
When you're able to share those anecdotes and say that, listen, this will work or this will not work. Don't get into this pitfall. But absolutely, I'll be more than happy. While we've never ever spoken about this, and I'm glad that we're talking, I would love to.
Well, that would be really nice, and
Yes.
I think my students would greatly benefit from your expertise as well.
No, thank you. That's very kind.
We have come to the pretty much the end of this segment, Jatin, and this is going to be a little fun segment, right? We've spoken about the economy.
I want to tell you one thing about
Tell
me.
me.
I'm a little serious kind of a guy, so just be mindful. Huh?
No, that's it. I'm still going to put you on the spot and let the intent of the show is also about the real man behind the suit,
Sure.
or the real lady behind the suit, right?
Sure.
Because there are always two personalities. In front of the camera, when you go back home. So don your persona in front of Raji and Tushar over here. Okay? What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
What's the most adventurous thing I've ever done?
Yeah, you were surprised.
Yeah, because
You were capable of doing something like that.
yeah, absolutely. But otherwise, when I'm with them, they're the more. Raji did her skydiving on her 50th birthday, and I said I will not do it ever. Both of them did
So
it.
what have you done?
Actually, I'm very boring that way.
You're very boring
I,
that way?
I always hold on to her bag and purse when they're doing all that stuff.
Doesn't matter. It takes a real man to admit that. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
One is very philosophical, is with my mom because she passed away in COVID and I couldn't be with her.
Beautiful.
That one last closure, I would say. That is one. Probably with one dinner, probably with a newer generation, to really understand how the world is changing and what is there up for grabs. I don't want to name some of those, great personalities because they have done what they have done, but it's very important to get into the minds of what is really happening with today's generation. I think you learn a lot and you really understand the consumer behavior a bit differently. I would say that probably, holds me in that regard. Not to discount that I would not love to sit with some of the other, seniors.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Is there any hidden talent? Something which no one knows about?
I'm a very good badminton player.
Even now?
Yes, you can say. And I've started playing tennis, which I learned during COVID. But a good badminton player.
Yeah.
My previous boss, Neeraj, me and Neeraj used to play together. And there's
You're talking Neeraj Goa?
Yes. Okay. And there's a very funny incident when we got beaten up in China. We were both together in Beijing in a game, not beaten up physically, but in a game by locals. But I play good badminton.
Right. So that which also means good hand-eye movement and, there is more focus. Excellent. If you could instantly become an expert in anything, what would it be?
If you ask my son, he'll tell you I try and become expert in everything, but I would stick to hotels. I think that comes naturally to me. Hotels, I would say.
Okay.
But actually, not even hotels. I would probably say revenue management. That comes more easier to me. As I said, I'm a little aggressive to drive top line.
I thought you would talk about Indian polity.
Well, not so much connected now.
Okay.
So that's why probably.
Fair enough. Yeah. If there is a definition of a perfect weekend getaway for you, what would it be?
No phone, only books.
Oh, you do like reading?
Oh, I love reading. I love reading. You'll always find one book with me when I'm traveling. So I just love reading.
And is there anything specific genre that you read, or anything like I read what bothers me? Well, so if something is bothering me, I read about that.
No, not like that. Like some of my favorite books are Grit by Angela Duckworth, Almond Tree, which is again, a fiction by Michelle Cohen. I love Top 10, Reasons for Failure. This was written by Coca-Cola president. So some of those books are my favorite one, and I love gifting.
The self-help books.
Yeah, self-help, fiction, whatever.
Yeah, okay. Are you a food person?
Who is not?
Okay,
you're
I'm
asking
not.
You're asking a person.
So I'm not. So if you're a food person, what's the weirdest food you've ever tried and liked?
This was in China, breakfast, fried frog.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so sorry, man. That's like Toad the wet sprocket. Oh. Okay, if you had a time machine, what era would you visit and why?
I would go back to 90s, and I was a little wayward at that time and probably not do and put more efforts into putting things right. I would probably say that.
You think it would have been different if you had to go back? And when you had to look at to 2024, would it be different?
Well, in a way, some of the things which you probably feel that you should not have done, while they're always good as a humor, but yeah, something a little more focused.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah,
you are who you are is because of that experience.
I'm sure that is. There.
And a lot of people who could not get that experience become bad boys in their 50s to get that experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. What's one item on your bucket list that you are determined to check off before you hang up your boots?
Travel. Especially travel with Tushar and Raji. Well, Raji absolutely hate what Tushar does to us, but travel. All three of us want to go to Japan. It's been kind of on our bucket list.
I've been there a couple of times.
All three of us want to do a safari in Africa, which probably we may end up doing next year. So yes.
And a lot of people who are looking at you and wondering, Jatin right now, here is a hotelier who's traveled around the world, right? And still has travel on perhaps one on his bucket list. And that's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, is every time you have traveled, it's work related and you just don't have time to do anything else. And now you want to do leisure travel.
That is one part. But the other part, what I've also realized, which probably I could not see in myself, but I saw it in my son. When my son was studying in UK, he started doing a part-time job. And he said, I'm going to do backpacking across Europe. And he's got this thing that with his age, he wants to visit one country. So his age and number of countries visited is same. From that perspective, every time I saw him, he was a little different changed man. And I think travel does that to you when you look at different cultures, different places. It's super important what you do. We try and take one holiday every year, which is obviously to a favorite destination wherever we all will enjoy. That's how it is. And it always gives us new, kind of inspiration or new ideas or new exposure is what I would say.
Thank you so much for your time, Jatin.
No, thank you.
And to the audiences, well, I promised you at the very outset that I am going to unpeel Jatin Khanna to the true person that he is. What he is inside is what he is outside. I hope we've taken you through a journey of what the industry looks like, both outside as well as from the inside. What does travel look like in India? But more importantly, again, for the younger audiences specifically, it's about the life lessons you will gather from this episode. So, on behalf of Jatin, and as I usually sign off, salam, namaste, adab, and sat sri akal. Thank you.